Today we'll look at 10 cheap hot hatchbacks you can buy for under £5,000. Let's get straight into it.
You can get into some super ropey Abarth 595s for our price range, but being realistic, you'll probably be looking at the slightly less aggressive Abarth 500 if you want something you can have a little bit more confidence in. I've actually driven a couple of 595s in the past with different specs, and the single most impressive thing about these is the attention to detail. There's a reason why Ferrari owners were sometimes given 695s as their courtesy cars, and it's just how much time and effort Abarth puts into the finish. For such a cheap car, the number of options and features you could throw onto these makes them super interesting, especially out on the roads. It's just a shame that I couldn't get on with the vacant steering feel. They come with a 1.4 litre turbocharged inline-4 engine that puts out 140 brake horsepower, taking the car to 60 in 7.8 seconds, and are listed anywhere from around £2,000, with 5k getting a 2012 model with 70,000 miles on the clock. Even though the finish is so good, the build quality has often been questioned by owners and reviewers. The most serious concerns are around the clutch failing, leaks from the cooling system, and turbo issues. Now we have the Alfa Romeo Mito Quadrifoglio, which is, in my opinion, one of the best value for money cars in its class. I've proven in the past that both first and second time drivers can typically get insured on these for pretty good prices, and it's pretty fast too as a first car, thanks to that 1.4 litre turbocharged inline-4 that makes 167 brake horsepower, taking the car to 60 in 7.3 seconds. The car isn't based on the Abarth 500 though, instead it takes its DNA from the Abarth Grande Punto, which means there are some shared parts. My personal favourite feature is the carbon-backed bucket seats, which are hard to come by within our price range since they actually sell for upwards of £2,000 on their own second hand. But regardless of what you go for, you get a nice hot hatch with good attention to detail, with the horseshoe alloys, cloverleaf badges, and other typical Alfa features. Not as specable as the Abarth, but not bad. They start at around £2,500, and double that gets you a 2012 model that's done around 55,000 miles. Engines are known to be good, but electrics and build quality have caused some owners problems. My first car was the Skoda Fabia Estate, and my gosh did I love it. I always wanted the diesel VRS as an upgrade, but it never happened. And now, all these years later, the following generation VRS is available for under 5k, with more practicality and a more modern look overall. The one thing about this car though is that engine hasn't got the best record. It's a 1.4 litre twin-charged inline-4 to be exact that makes 177 brake horsepower, taking the car to 60 in 7.1 seconds, and it's known for some horrendous weaknesses. It was shared with the Polo GTI, and both got pretty badly harassed on owners' forums for catastrophic engine failures. Looking past that though, the quality was better elsewhere than the first gen VRS, and it's definitely a good looking car but not overly obvious, and personally, given my first car, I'd get one in Estate instead. You'll find them starting at around £2,000, and 5k will get you a 2011 example with 90,000 miles on it. The Mark V VW Golf GTI is one of my personal favourite generations, just old enough to be more analog and simple, and probably just as importantly, it's not the Mark IV GTI, which is a bit of a letdown. I love the 3-door models, and in the right spec I honestly think they look as cool as the R32, especially with that more typical hot hatch formula of slightly less power but maximum fun factor, with all the little quirks that hark back to previous GTIs, like the flashes of red, the plaid interior, and the likes. I honestly think the GTI might be the only car I would try to buy specifically in a lower spec, sack off the leather seats and go for the historic fabric instead. In line with that typical hot hatch formula, he's got a 2 litre turbocharged inline-4, putting out 197 brake horsepower, taking him to 60 in 7 seconds. £2,000 minimum you'll find these listed for, and £5,000 is enough for a 2005 model that's done around 90,000 miles. Watch out for problems like cam follower wear, a failing diverter and PCV valve, and corrosion on the Monza wheels. The mini hatch John Cooper work from the R56 generation really picked up with the R53 generation left off, and early doors that JCW badge actually managed to get a fair bit of notoriety. And nowadays, as prices have dropped below 5k, they are actually insanely well equipped for the money, as they were genuinely inspired by the actual JCW Challenge track car. Compared to the Cooper S, they got more power, stiffer suspension, 17-inch alloys, Brembo brakes, dynamic stability control and traction control, and EDIF control too. Match that with a 6-speed manual gearbox, and these things are absolutely built for driver enjoyment. They got a 1.6 litre turbocharged inline-4 block that makes 208 brake horsepower, taking the car to 60 in 6.5 seconds. If you want one, you need to spend around £3,500, and with our 5k price range, you'll be looking at a 2011 example that's done around 95,000 miles. The one major problem though is the death rattle on the N14 engine, resulting from failing timing chain tensioners. If you can get one newer than 2012, you can get get an N18 instead, which was much better on this, but also was known to be less tunable.
I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. What is the right price to pay for a hot hatchback? Did a video recently at 25k and this one is at 5k, and I'd love to hear where you think the right kind of place is to buy a hot hatch. By the way, 72% of people watching this right now are not subscribed. That applies to you. Do hit subscribe and like the video as well for 2 videos every week.
Nowadays, the Honda Civic Type R is probably at hyper hatch levels of performance, specifically because of how good it is on track, but arguably the ugly duckling of the Type R lineage is this, the FN2 generation. Don't get me wrong, I personally think it's actually quite a cool looking car, especially in this price range, and like the GTI, I love that it stays true to Type R history with the red interior and features around the car, and it started getting that little bit more aggressive looking with the insanely angular modern examples we've seen since. I just mean it ended up with the same engine as the previous generation and was heavier too, so purists struggle to see how it was an upgrade. That engine isn't one to sniff at though. It's the beloved K20, a 2-litre inline-4 with Honda's hallowed VTEC, producing 198 brake horsepower, taking the car to 60 in 6.4 seconds. They're listed anywhere from around £2,500, and double that gets you a 2012 model with 100,000 miles on the clock. That K20 is known to be very reliable and very tunable. Just watch out for clutches and gearboxes, which are the more problematic areas. Somehow the 3rd generation Ford Focus ST has dropped into our 5k price range over the last few years, which feels like quite a modern car, but then I suppose it did hit the market in around 2012, 13 years ago. The Mark II Focus ST was definitely the car that enhanced the ST badge for Focuses, but the Mark III pushed that formula along with the more aggressive wing, the big angry grille on the front, combining with angular looks all around. This thing still looks good today in my opinion. You'll only be getting a pre-facelift model, but that's still pretty sick, and you'll get all 3 specs too, ST1, 2 and 3, depending on how you like your car, but obviously going for the fully loaded ST3 makes sense. They come with a 2-litre turbocharged inline-4, putting out 246 brake horsepower, taking them to 60 in 6.3 seconds, and start at around £4,000, with our 5k limit getting a 2013 model that's done around 90,000 miles. The EcoBoost engine was actually not bad, despite what you might have read. A level head will see that most eco booms appear to be the result of over-tuning and under-strengthening rather than a specific engine fault. The Vauxhall Astra H VXR is genuinely one of the first modern cars that absolutely got me into hot hatchbacks as a kid. I was 10 when they came out, and I can vividly remember one driving away from my dad's garage with the most mental sounding exhaust. In my head, it wasn't a million miles away from being a rally car. Now obviously it's not a rally car in the slightest, but the thought still persists, and it was definitely a capable car as it set the front wheel drive lap record at the Nürburgring back in 2005, no mean feat. I also think it just has proper mid-2000s cool, when manufacturers weren't sure whether cars should be boxy or fluid in their design, and somehow the VXR is kind of both. I don't mind the following generation's looks, but the H takes it for me personally. They got a 2-litre turbocharged inline-4 that makes 236 brake horsepower, taking the car to 60 in 6.2 seconds, pretty good for their age, but watch out for clutch and gearbox issues. You'll find them starting from around £3,000, and 5k will get a 2008 example with 100,000 miles on it. Now we have the 2nd generation Mazda 3 MPS, and it might be a bit of a stretch to call it a 2nd gen. In reality, Mazda had given the car a facelift and more importantly addressed some of the snagging issues they had with the 1st gen. It didn't get more power, instead it got more mid-range torque, better fuel economy, and a real focus on being more engaging to drive. Part of that came from the drop of around 50 kilograms and a stiffening up of the suspension and chassis, plus thicker ARBs. These definitely made a difference, but there's broad agreement that it still isn't the best handling hot hatch due to a fair bit of torque steer that Mazda tried to control but just didn't quite get perfect. It kind of looks like the Impreza WRX hatchback and had an equally bad reliability record with timing chain and VVT actuator issues, plus high pressure fuel pump failures. They came with a 2.3-litre turbocharged inline-4 engine that makes 256 brake horsepower, taking them to 60 in 5.9 seconds, and £4,000 the lowest that I could find them listed for, with 5k being enough for a 2012 model that's done around 100,000 miles. The 1st generation Audi S3 was, I think, the brand's first proper hot hatchback, and it didn't get the RS3 equivalent, so it just kinda sat there as this crazy fast little beast. It was followed up by the 2nd gen S3, which massively modernised the formula, given the 1st gen arrived in 1999 and gave the car a bunch more power. These come with a 2-litre turbocharged inline-4, putting out 261 brake horsepower, taking them to 60 in 5.5 seconds, and that engine actually came with an uprated larger turbo, larger intercooler, and high performance pistons too. Audi really went for it with this car. Thinking of the VW group for a moment, though people loved the Mark V Golf R32, the S3 was noticeably quicker, as was pretty much the case with all of its hot hatch rivals. This thing was a beast of its time. You need to spend around £3,000 to get into one. Within our 5k price range, you'll be looking at a 2007 example with high mileage. They're known to be quite reliable, but many will have lived hard lives, so worth considering. Even the build quality on the interior it is known to be pretty good still. You should definitely check out my review of a lovely little hot hatch. Click on screen to go watch that. Thanks to patrons that support you as well for watching. I'll see you in the next one.